It is genuinely incredibly challenging and profoundly difficult for me to listen to that particular sound, that distressing and urgent 911 emergency call, without having any prior knowledge or personal connection to the individuals involved in such a deeply emotional and impactful situation.
Henry County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
I'm driving on 210. I just crossed the Black River, and I thought I saw a guy standing on the side of the road bleeding.
What was that, sir?
That's not human! That's not human!
The lack of familiarity makes it even more harrowing to process.
That was actually the first thing that really struck me when I heard it. Most of our seas and oceans are unexplored, and a huge majority of the underground and the ground we stand on is unexplored and unknown. There are even many open areas on the surface of our planet that are unexplored and forests where no human foot has ever set. What still remains undiscovered in such places? Most people would probably tell you, likely nothing all that important. But every year, hundreds of thousands of people from all over the world disappear without a trace. Those who are lucky enough to survive an encounter with something bizarre. They tell very disturbing stories, and today's video will take you to a place like this. A place where two people, just a few kilometers apart and a few years apart. In their cases, they had close encounters with non-human entities that were hiding in the dark forests.
My bed light. And I looked in my rearview mirror and all I saw was this white, like snow white face right up against my rear windshield.
And this is their incredible story. From time to time, I like to make a video on a topic that might at least slightly mess with someone's plans for a possible trip involving isolated and lonely places, like camping in the wild, far from civilization, venturing deep into forest off marked trails, especially at night. Well, today's topic is one of those, one of the rare new topics lately that I had never heard of until just a few days ago. This story literally amazed me, and I decided to make a video about it right away. A few days ago, on one of the Reddit groups I usually use for more bizarre stories and strange events, I came across a really interesting video clip, or rather, an audio recording. And it was from a man in North Carolina back in 2021. He called 911. That's the American emergency number, and reported a disturbing situation. This audio recording was real. The police, actually the sheriff, released it publicly. It's not edited or a reenactment of any kind. It's an authentic audio recording from the police dispatch center, recorded by the dispatcher in 2021, that year. And this recording was really interesting to me, maybe a bit unsettling for some people, but still very intriguing. But with just this audio recording, I couldn't really do anything at all. It simply wasn't enough to make a longer, high-quality video. At best, I could have included it in some future, similar topic as a short, authentic example. But then I started digging a little deeper into this case, and soon I found another very similar case that would have otherwise remained completely unknown if a new YouTube channel hadn't made 2 reports and 2 short documentaries about these cases. I'm talking about Caroline Case Files, a YouTube channel that was created at the end of May this year, and by all accounts, will be covering some interesting cases exclusively from the state of Caroline. And the team from this new YouTube channel handled these 2 cases in a professional manner. And in both cases, they directly spoke with the witnesses. Now, this is already material for a top-notch video. When you have a video with first-hand witness statements, that's why I reached out and asked for permission to broadcast parts of their videos, which I have translated for you today, and obviously, they gave me permission. Usually, in 90% of cases, I get permission for things like this. For Ozark, they only asked that I put links to their YouTube channel and their videos in the description of today's video. And since you won't be seeing their full videos today, even though I, of course, picked out the most interesting parts, I recommend checking out their YouTube channel for even more details because honestly, I found everything interesting. So, what exactly are we talking about here today? Both cases are new, with one from 2021 and the other from 2024. They happened just a few kilometers apart in the same area. July 31st, 2021, in Pender County, in the rural part of North Carolina. In the dead of night, a man called 911, the emergency number, and reported that he had seen an injured man standing in a ditch by the road in pitch darkness in the middle of the woods, and that he was bleeding heavily. And as I already told you, this is an authentic event and a real case that is very well documented by both the local sheriff and the local police. The situation with the bleeding man is already mysterious and bizarre enough. You'll find out why soon enough, because this was not normal. A clothed man, but no matter how disturbing the scene with a man bleeding on the road was. For the man who called 911, the situation is about to get much scarier because he will have an extremely close encounter with a terrifying creature. And the next audio recording you will hear in its entirety was made that very night. Ours confronted them. Authentic. As you could hear,
a call came into our 911 dispatch of an individual standing on the side of the road, and it appeared to be bleeding. Now, he stated he was traveling 55 or 60 mile an hour, so I can see how traveling at that speed in the dark, it would be difficult to exactly identify what he saw. But he stated that it looked like a human being standing there with streaks of blood coming down. It is very hard to listen to that call, to that 911 tape, without becoming somewhat unnerved. It actually bothered me the first time that I heard it.
Tender County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
I'm driving on 210. I just crossed the Black River, and I thought I saw a guy standing on the side of the road bleeding.
Okay, where are you at, sir?
I'm on 210. I just crossed the Black River. I'm heading towards 53 East. I just passed Patriots Watch.
Okay, so you're over near Morse Creek?
Yes.
Okay. And did you saw a man standing on the side of the road?
What the?
What was that, sir?
That's not human! That's not human!
Sir, are you okay, sir?
There's something in the bed of my truck!
Okay, what's in the road?
No, it's not in the road, it's in my truck. In the bed.
There's something in the bed of your truck?
Yes, ma'am, I just turned on my bed lights for my truck and there's something in my bed.
Okay, sir, when you say something, what do you mean?
I just knocked it off of the bed of my truck and went over my roof.
Okay, what was it?
According to the CAD notes and the deputy reports, this thing jumped into the back of his pickup truck and began to actually beat on the top of the cab of his truck. You could actually hear something beating on the top of the truck. The caller stated that it was beating and scratching on the top of the cab of his truck. He actually stated that he was able to engage his bed light and was able to somewhat identify this object that was in the back of his truck. At some point, he was able to slam on his brakes, and the force of inertia actually threw this thing out over his hood and onto the highway, where this thing stood up in the roadway, made its way to the wood line, and disappeared in the woods.
Here, this audio call is quite interesting, maybe a bit scary for some people, but on its own it's not enough for a full documentary video case because, of course, you don't have a witness who has come forward publicly. But all of that changed on September 13th. That is, just a week ago, when a team from Carolina Case Files visited the site where the incident happened, went there in person, and spoke with their main witness and the caller who was driving that truck on that night 4 years ago. For understandable reasons, this man wanted to remain anonymous during the interview and did not want to show his face, but his identity has been verified by the film crew, as well as by the police and the sheriff, because this is indeed the man who made that call. And his next testimony is very interesting because this man shared even more details than he did in that call. And I know that some of you prefer when I tell the story myself. I prefer that too, but not in cases when we have this kind of witness. It's important that each viewer among you personally evaluates this man directly, that you assess his behavior and his statements, and try to decide for yourself whether he's telling the truth or not. And this is his testimony.
I was coming up from Florida to visit my family. At the time I was going to a trade school down there, and when I was driving up here to where the incident occurred by the battlefield, it was already easily like well into the morning. I wasn't looking at my phone. I just know it was pitch black outside, and it was pitch black. I couldn't see the moon, stars, nothing, just barely the road through my headlights. And I had my window down because the AC wasn't working the best. And as I was coming around, there's a massive right curve right there before you cross the Black River. And then after that, you have the battlefield. So on that massive black curve, as I'm coming around, I had just started the curve, and I was about a third of the way through it, and I look over into the ditch on my right because I caught a quick glimpse of something, and as I take a further look, it looks like there's I'd say probably a 30-something-year-old man standing in that ditch wearing what looks like an old Civil War uniform, just covered head to toe in blood. And the uniform was torn as well. That threw me off because I didn't expect to see it at like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, I'm calling 911 after I see him to report that, because for all I know, it could have just been a normal guy that was injured and needed needed emergency help. It looked like what had happened is he hit his head on something.
Okay.
And the blood was just pooling down over his face and torso.
Okay.
And well, as I was calling, everything seemed perfectly normal. Just quick phone call to 911, let them know, hey, there's a guy out here, and try to find somewhere safe to park so that way I can take them to him. Well, as you know from the 911 call, right as soon as I reported that, I already had my window up at that point. All of a sudden, I heard a massive bang on my truck, and my truck bounced down from the rear, like I was pulling a heavy trailer and I hit a pothole.
Wow.
And so I'm sitting there going, what the hell was that? Which I'm pretty sure you heard me yell, what the hell? I turned on my my bed light, and I looked in my rearview mirror, and all I saw was this white, like snow white face right up against my rear windshield, like it was looking into my truck trying to see what it could see. It had shallow sunken eyes. It had no nose. Just think if you took skin and put it on a human skull and stretched it thin. Couldn't see any ears, just that. And immediately I just started screaming. I didn't realize until afterwards that I had said that's not human on the call, because it was just the first thing I started screaming, because I was terrified. I didn't have my firearm with me, nothing. All I had was a wood splitting axe. That's all I had. So, and my truck is loud as is, and it picks up speed fairly easily. Well, my truck at the time, it had a gas-powered 6-liter V8 Vortec on it, and it was a proper dual exhaust, hence why I had the window up, because that truck is nice and loud.
Okay.
Well, I'm doing in between like 55, 60 miles an hour when this happens, and I just stomped on the gas for a second. When I looked at the speedometer before I slammed on my brakes, I was doing maybe 80. And I slammed on those brakes with all my might, and I went from like 80 miles an hour down to like 35 in just like a couple of seconds. And all I see is this super scrawny long body just fly over my truck in a ball rolling. And as I then swerve to the left and get back in the travel lane, and I floor it. And as I'm swerving to the left, I see it stand up, and it is easily taller than that truck.
No way.
I'm 5'10". The truck is about 2 inches taller than I am. And this thing was easily like maybe 7 feet.
Wow.
And as I pass it, I look in my mirror and I see it bolt to the left into the woods, and it looked like I don't even know what the hell, because it looked like somebody took a normal human and stretched them out, starting with the limbs.
Wow.
It like abnormally long legs and arms, and it just took off into the woods. And I just said, nope, I'm out of here. I'm not staying to figure out what this is. And there's a gas station all the way at the corner where the highway intersects. And I pulled into that gas station. I was doing like 90 all the way to that gas station because that was the only place with any light that I saw.
Right.
And I just stopped in that parking lot and waited like 10, 15 minutes for state troopers to show up. Well, next thing I know, the state troopers show up at the gas station, and I'm just staring back at that road to make sure that it's not coming back.
Right.
So I tell them what happened. They proceed to look at my truck, look in the bed of the truck, look on top of the cab. And on top of the cab, clear as day, you can see like it was scratching trying to get into my truck.
Really?
Or when it initially hit, another way to look at it is when it hit the back of the truck and landed in the bed, like it had latched onto the hood for a second and scraped trying to balance itself.
Yeah.
And you could see that clear as day. I mean, there was a couple of scratches from like squirrels and tree branches, but those stuck out because it looked like it had landed like this and just ripped backwards. And well, they asked me to take them approximately where it happened. And I mean, when it's the middle of the night and you're going the opposite direction of where you just came, your sense of direction's a little off.
Right.
So I took them back to approximately where I believe it was, because I couldn't see. I didn't remember any landmarks because I was going from the other way. I still remember the jolt of the truck, the fear, everything. I remember pretty much everything just in that one moment. I was still in fight or flight when they told me, hey, can you go back and show us? Because I did not want to go back. I don't want to.
I don't blame you at all. I don't blame you.
I still refuse to drive through that area at night because I don't know what I saw. I don't ever want to see it again.
I think it's probably much clearer to you now why I started today's video with a mystery of how much is still unknown to us on this so-called planet of ours. Because this story doesn't involve any strange lights. There are no spacecraft with beings coming out of them, just a dark forest with a creature that, according to descriptions, looked like this. This appearance definitely fits when we're talking about some kind of extraterrestrial beings. But the problem with this story is that we don't know what this creature was, because as you could see, the police and the sheriff. Whether you take this man seriously and whether he's making up this story or not, I'll leave it up to you to decide. But of course, I'll also share my own opinion. Personally, I don't get the impression that he's lying. The motive is unknown. There's no benefit to it. It's clear he doesn't even want media attention. Why would someone mess with the police with such a bizarre story and a bizarre creature? And of course, he can't prove these incidents, but my overall impression is that he's not lying. Of course, I could be wrong, but that's just my overall impression. What this man described doesn't actually happen as rarely as you might think, because snow-white beings of enormous height with elongated bodies, arms, and legs, and facial features resembling some version of the Greys, without noses or ears, are actually a relatively common occurrence. These cases sometimes involve abductions. Sometimes they involve spacecraft, lights in the sky, and other similar things, but sometimes these kinds of things are apparently lurking right in the middle of the night in the local forests. This area of North Carolina is a vast region with endless forests where there is simply no civilization or nearby settlements. It's hard to believe that something like this could be friendly, but aside from this creature that clearly wanted a ride without asking. The situation was just as bizarre, and it was actually the main reason why this man even called 911 in the first place. And that was the mysterious bloody man in his 30s who, in the middle of the night, injured and covered in blood, stopped on by the side of the road, very close to where this unknown creature appeared a little later. This man was never found. No such injuries were reported at any hospitals or emergency services. His body was never discovered, and the man himself remains almost as much of a mystery as the creature. Because there is one crucial detail that adds a huge layer of mystery to this case. This witness described that the man was dressed in some kind of uniform that looked like those from the American Civil War, which, by the way, happened more than 160 years ago. And those uniforms, depending on which side you were fighting for, looked like this. Why would a man be walking around in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, wearing a uniform like this? Near the place where this incident happened, there is also a memorial battlefield, a field called Moore's Creek, where American patriots fought a battle against English loyalists back in 1776. That year, after which they won, and after that, North Carolina effectively gained independence from the English at that time. The only thing that came to my mind is that maybe there was some kind of memorial event where people showed up in old uniforms to commemorate this victory day. So maybe this main witness confused the uniforms, didn't understand the history, because the Patriots definitely had different uniforms from the soldiers who would fight on the same ground 100 years later. But still, no disappearance was reported and no ceremony was held. So who was this unknown man? Maybe it was some kind of tasteless prank by a few odd people who wanted to scare someone by the road for a prank video. I seriously doubt that someone like this, dressed in this kind of costume, would jump into a moving truck like that in this way. The reason I chose this kind of thumbnail is because this creature from the latest Jell-O Romulus movie reminded me exactly of the being described by this witness. And believe it or not, it's not some kind of computer animation. It's actually a real person in a costume in this movie. He's actually a basketball player with a growth disorder and some other illnesses. So, the man is sick and this is how he really looks. I seriously doubt that someone like this, in a costume, tried to pull some prank on the road in the middle of the night in the area of Chavina, Carolina. And as I usually say, if everything had ended with just this case, today's video would be wrapping up right now. A good story for all fans of these kinds of bizarre events. But no, the story doesn't end here. In January of last year, another incident happened that no one had even heard of until just a few months ago. A different man and his friend, in January 2024, just a few kilometers from the first incident, also in the middle of the woods and at night. In the immediate vicinity, just a few meters away, they saw something very similar, just like that witness in 2021 did. This time, the team from this YouTube channel met with a 40-year-old witness named Larry, who agreed to share his testimony on camera and take the film crew to the very site of the alleged incident. That night, Larry and his friend were in the local woods where they grew up, testing out their military gear, and this is the kind of classic American story you'd be hard-pressed to find anywhere else in the world. Two grown men, dressed in full military gear outside of a war zone. That means fully kitted out from head to toe with radios, night vision, and real weapons and real rifles, wandering around the woods, and all of this in the middle of the night. This might seem a little strange to you, but these are completely normal things in parts like this in the United States, even if you're not some kind of hunter. And these photos you're looking at were taken that very night. At one point in the middle of the night, a few hundred meters from the main road, suddenly, in the direction of the road, they heard gunshots from pistol. Even this, judging by the reactions of the host and the witness himself, that is, that man is completely normal there. People just shoot around the woods in the middle of the night. Larry and his friend, after hearing the gunshots, naturally got a bit worried and decided to lay low for a while. They stayed in one spot to assess the situation, while his friend used the night vision scope on his rifle. Scanning the area around them, in a split second, he noticed the bizarre creature. Soon, both of them clearly saw it with their own eyes. With a night vision scope.
So we hear something snapping and popping and stop. And so when he brings his rifle up,
To put the IR on it.
exactly,
Okay.
he scans from his left to his right and no more. And this whole incident was just, I'd say maybe a few seconds. Scans from the left to the right. And now as I'm looking at him, I kind of move my head and see his light moving across something. And as he moves back,
He saw it too, so
He
now he's
saw it.
backing up.
yeah,
Okay.
we didn't verbally communicate. So I'm just watching what he's doing. And what I see, man, it's making make my hair just stand
See
up,
that,
just
yeah.
standing in the very spot. This being, if I were to try to touch its shoulder, I could not, reach, here. So I see, my eyes are low, so I see feet first. I see two dog style feet / legs. You know, you got the pad, then you got the foot, then you got the heel, and I'm talking, you know, before it kicks into a heel, it's pretty high. And it goes, as his illuminator rolls up, you know, I'm seeing no hair, a lot of muscles, like this thing just spent time in the gym, you know, just working out, just absolutely shredded, you know, couldn't believe my eyes, you know, or my eye actually, because I, you know, have it covered on one side. And, you know, he kind of rolled up a little bit, and as he's rolling up, it just keeps going and going. And I always compare it to a chimpanzee with, you know, no hair, a little bit of hair around the elbow.
Yeah.
Arms probably, my goodness, man, you know, from
Longer
here
than
down.
ours would be.
Exactly. Much, you know, something you don't want to encounter in the woods in the middle of the night.
Right.
And as he's rolling up, I see, the last part of it I can see was its shoulder, and as it's turning, I couldn't see its head. It disappears from shoulder to feet right in front of my eyes. So,
another unbelievable case like the previous one. For more detailed information, I suggest you watch the entire video. For some reason, the creators of this video decided at one point to include such an entity, basically a kind of werewolf, in the video. But Larry and his friend clearly saw only the body. And Larry claims that he didn't see the face of this creature, which immediately retreated and ran away, then followed them through the woods until they left the area. According to his descriptions, this creature was also very tall, with elongated arms and legs, and through the night vision scope, its skin appeared to have a white hue. And it's unknown what color it actually was, because this night vision device produces a black and white image and wasn't the typical green night vision like in most cases. Another witness, not connected to the first man and who doesn't even know him, just a few kilometers from the site of the first incident and several years later. These people didn't have their own night vision equipment. The question is whether they would have even realized that something was watching them and that it was hiding from them just a few meters away. These two cases you've heard about today aren't always strictly linked to ufology because there are no other known characteristics. It's impossible to determine what this thing is, or even if it's extraterrestrial at all. And sometimes incidents like these are included in what's called cryptozoology. According to official sources, it's a pseudoscientific subculture that usually deals with the study of other non-human entities like the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, and the Yeti, as well as other cryptid creatures that some people believe exist. Do these two cases fall under cryptozoology? I don't know. But the descriptions of these beings clearly match the descriptions of certain types of non-terrestrial creatures. And it's a huge mystery where these kinds of things even come from and what they're doing in the forests, since they also appear, of course, on other continents. Is it a matter of some local and undiscovered species that lives underground, some kind of nocturnal creature that only comes to the surface at night? That might explain its albino color and large dark eyes, since that's the main characteristic of nocturnal and underground creatures. And we don't know how intelligent they are, what their intentions might be, but considering that bloody man from the first case, I wouldn't really want to get close to them at night without some heavy artillery. But then there's the most bizarre version, which involves that wounded man, and because of him, and a bloody man in uniform. When a huge number of people go missing every year, sometimes these disappearances happen suddenly, in a split second. So, we're walking together through the woods, I try to say something to you, look forward again, then turn back after just a couple of seconds, and you're gone without a trace. Which, of course, is completely impossible in real life, but in this case, you're never found again. One of the bizarre explanations for these kinds of cases is this one. That these are interdimensional beings who open portals. So, you stumble into some kind of invisible portal that maybe they set up just for you. Or they use it for some other purpose, and you just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. In a portal that transfers you somewhere else. Not just to some other physical place that might match, but to another time. Which would explain why this man was wearing this old and torn uniform, 160 years old. According to some people, there is exactly this possibility that he was abducted from that time and transferred to the modern era. And maybe he was already injured. Maybe he hurt himself while stumbling through the dark forest, or maybe this very creature was chasing him before he ran into the man with the truck. Of course, All of this is heavy speculation, and we have no idea where such things even come from. There's a real possibility that they live here with us on Earth, and that they don't come from some distant planet or the unknown depths of space, but have always lived here and simply avoid humans openly. Maybe all of this sounds like some kind of fantastic possibility to you, but that's exactly the possibility Congressman Tim Burchett talked about recently after that last congressional hearing we saw in that video. The man is in direct contact with all those whistleblowers, some of whom still haven't come forward publicly to talk about these things. I think that, in general, people rarely go off on their own in the middle of the night into some dark forest. But after today's video, even a few brave ones left among you will think twice, because things like this and similar things happen here too. Yes, right here where we live. And I think it's finally time for me to get out there myself. See you again soon. Take care.
I don't know for sure what he saw or what he experienced that night, but it was obvious that he was distraught on the 911 call. I'm afraid it's probably just one of those things in this world that we may not ever know the answer to.